So I just got done watching Dune Part 2 and just wow, there is a lot to talk about. No spoilers in the beginning, spoilers later on, and with that all out of the way.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination.
Wow, I did not expect this cinematic experience. This was an incredible movie to watch on the big screen in IMAX. The fight scenes were incredible in the movie. The story was super engaging and compelling. Acting is phenomenal all throughout. I don't think there's like a negative this thing to say about any of the acting in the movie. This honestly felt like watching Empire Strikes Back in a way. Like with everything that's happened in the movie, like just groundbreaking. This movie feels very groundbreaking, and so if you can't tell already, I really like this film. There's not a lot of negatives to say about it. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece like some people are calling it. I would say this film is just really, really good. And it's a classic to me. I'm invested into this universe now. I'm like invested in this universe like how I'm invested into Star Wars or Star Trek, Harry Potter, and all the other franchises. This is a really engaging universe to get invested into. Now, this is coming from the perspective of someone that's never read the Dune books. I've heard Dune fans are kind of divided on like these two movies, part one, part two. I felt like, by the way, I felt like part one was pretty good. I felt like it was good. I gave part one a 78%. This one, I'm going to give a much higher rating. This was much better. I did not watch these movies back to back, so I think I'm going to do is going to rewatch part one and then watch part two right afterwards. And maybe I'll just like rewatch the movie again so I can get the full experience. But I did rewatch the first movie in preparation for this movie. I think I watched it like a day or two before watching part two. And I still like the first movie. I do feel like it's a bit slow at times, and I wasn't like fully engaged into the movie. I feel like it set up a lot of cool things for a sequel, and this sequel pays everything off beautifully. And it really stands on its own. It's just a great movie. Really, really well done in all aspects. Denis Villeneuve did an exceptional job directing this movie. Like, this is how I want movies to be directed. I want to be directed with great cinematography, great acting, great sound. Not a lot of CGI, but CGI that's used like a perfect amount. Like everything looked real, even the CGI moments, because everything wasn't behind a stupid green screen 24/7. Everything was like real locations and like real actors being on set together. It felt like, what a movie's supposed to be, unlike a lot of movies these days where they're all like behind green screens and CGI everywhere and lazy cinematography and actors not even being on the same set, so the acting doesn't really feel authentic. This is how movies should be made, and I think we're seeing a direction now where we're getting movies back to what they're supposed to be. They're back to being art again. We had Oppenheimer, we had Barbie. I don't think Barbie is like some sort of cinematic, masterpiece or whatever. And I think it's kind of weird that's Oscar nominated, but it's still a really good movie, and it felt like it had heart put into it, and it felt like a real movie. It felt like someone really cared about this movie, and it could have easily been a lazy cash grab with little to no effort put into the movie. And look at Dune Part 2, Oppenheimer, Barbie, all movies that feel like real movies, like art, compared to your CGI, blockbuster, lazy crap. They're all making a lot of money, and it looks like, I think studios are listening, and I think we're going to get the trend of taking your time with your movies again. And even looking at Top Gun Maverick, I think the 2020s are going to be a brand new era in film, and just be prepared, honestly. Like, we're going to get some of the best movies of all time, I feel like, in this era. And I think we're already seeing some really great stuff. We're getting some classics already, like with Top Gun Maverick, Oppenheimer, Dune Part 2, even the Quiet Place films, there's a lot of great stuff being made in the 2020s, I feel like. So this is going to be an era of movies that will forever be remembered. And there's so much more I want to talk about, but I'll talk about that more in spoilers. All I have to say is Denis Villeneuve did a great job. I can't wait to see more of his work. I always liked him as a director. He is one of the best working directors right now. And yeah, there's just not much negative to say about this film. I do have one negative, maybe two. There's like one scene in one section of the film I feel like could have been completely cut out or cut down. I feel like some things dragged a little bit too much. I mean, the movie is 2 hours and 40 something minutes combined with the first movie. This is like a 5-hour movie in a way, even though I feel like part two pretty much stands on its own as a thing separated from part one. I feel like you still need to watch part one to like to understand more of part two, but in a way, part one and part two is kind of like one movie. But I'm gonna give this film a 90%. What a cinematic experience! I think this movie is gonna be a classic for many years to come. People will be talking about this movie for a very long time. All right, let's talk some spoilers. We have a couple things that we need to talk about, and we'll talk about them now. In 3, 2, 1. All right, spoiler warning, you have been warned. Okay, first off, the one part of the film I did not like was the whole black and white section of the film. I felt like it was just really dragged out, very long. I feel like the whole introduction to Austin Butler's character could have been really cut down a lot. I feel like his whole section where they first introduced him really just like it just like kind of killed the pacing a bit. I felt like we were really focusing on Paul, and all of a sudden we just like getting this whole backstory to Austin Butler's character, and I just felt like the whole thing was kind of a waste of time and really dragged out. And it kind of puts the movie down a little bit from being like a 100% masterpiece to being like a 90%. I know they are adapting the book; they want to get as much as they can from the book, and apparently, Denis Villeneuve wants to be very book accurate. I believe. I think there are some things that are not 100% accurate. I don't know. I never read the books, but the thing is with book to movie adaptations, they're never gonna be 100% accurate. Sometimes they're not even accurate at all, and that's okay sometimes. It really just depends on the circumstances and stuff. Like with the Harry Potter movies, they're not 100% accurate to the books, and they're great movies, so you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to adapting books into movies. You're not going to be 100% accurate, and same thing with comic books too. This is what it is. Like I said, I think my favorite character in this movie was Paul. Oh my god, like his scenes were so cool. Like when he becomes the leader and stuff, he's like commanding things with his voice, and like Timothée Chalamet did a really good job in this movie. Everyone did, but I think he specifically did a phenomenal job with just like he starts off as this humble guy. He's like, oh, I don't really want to be a leader and this and that. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm badass. You want to fight me? You come on. You take me on. You're like, yo, he was so cool. I really like what they did with him and his character. They did a really great job with just building him up to being like this god that see the futures and stuff. He was badass. I do wish he did stay a little humble though. I know that really pissed off Shawnee, and their relationship is fractured, and I'm sure they'll get back together or something. Because I know Paul said he saw a future where she understands where he was coming from. But I wish he was still a bit humble with all that. I felt like he really did like a 180 really quickly. I don't know. We'll see how they develop his character in future films and stuff. And I did hear things about the next book. I don't know if anyone wants to hear about it. I'll talk about it in a little bit in an extra spoiler section. And apparently the next book, Dune Messiah, is considered very controversial. Some say it's like really, really good. Some say it's really bad. It's like a Last Jedi situation apparently. So yeah, all the characters were done really well, and even like it was kind of weird seeing Christopher Walken in a serious movie. I mean, I know he used to do really serious movies, but recently for me, like I saw him in, like some comedy movies, and he doesn't really. It's cool seeing him something really made really well again. It seems like he was really trying with this movie, and I don't think I've seen him trying anything in a really long time, but it was still kind of like off-putting, but he still did a really good job. It's like, oh wow, it's Christopher Walken. What the hell is he doing in the Dune movie? But it was still really cool seeing him in something serious again. Everyone was on their A game, and it really felt like everyone was just trying to do their best because they know this movie is going to be really good, and you can feel it. You can feel everyone invested, and just a really great job from beginning to end. And the last thing I want to talk about is Dune Messiah. And if you don't want to hear any spoilers about that book and what could possibly be the third movie, that is your time to leave. But I did hear some stuff about Dune Messiah, and I'm kind of worried about that because apparently it's taking place 12 years later in Dune Messiah, and apparently everyone doesn't really see him as this great leader. It's kind of like a deconstruction of the character, and it's kind of like a Last Jedi situation, so I'm not sure how everyone's going to feel about Dune Messiah, and especially since it's a very controversial book, so maybe they should maybe not adapt Dune Messiah. I really don't know what they should do for Dune 3. I just hope it doesn't ruin the series. And I heard it gets really weird in the later books. I have no idea about any of the other ones. I I do know that the fourth book, I believe, got adapted to like a TV movie by James McAvoy, but it is kind of worrying that the next book and possibly like the third movie, the second book, third movie might not be that good or very controversial. But we'll see what happens. And I can't wait for this TV show. I have no idea what's going to be about except that it's a prequel series. Very excited for that. And yeah, I think it's really cool that there's like this new sci-fi universe out there that it's actually not new. I mean, it inspired a lot of franchises that we already had, like Star Wars, and that makes Dune even better in my opinion. The fact that this came first, this was like the very first sci-fi thing, or one of the very first, that inspired many other science fiction and sci-fi stuff. The final thing I'll say is round of applause for everyone involved. We're in a new age of cinema, and get ready because we're going to get some of the best content we've ever gotten in cinematic history.